Hello, everybody. Warm welcome. Please sit comfortably for a practice. I'm going to be keeping my video off today. So on Saturday night, we done a session where I had asked all of you several times. I'd asked you, why are you suffering? What alleviates suffering? And you'd all given very powerful answers. It's something we did over and over again. So today's session, I will give you my favorite answers. So it's very simple. I will again and again invite you to tune into any kind of suffering. Sometimes suffering is a big word. You can use a simpler word like dissatisfaction or tightness or heaviness or limitation. Any kind of affliction, any kind of stickiness, including the attachment to pleasant experience. That is the suffering I'm referring to. That is the dissatisfaction I'm referring to. So again and again, I'll invite you to just tune into that, and I will share with you some of my favorite ways. It's not actually favorite, it's just effective. It's not about favoritism. I just know that for me, these are very effective. And you can check if it's effective for you or not. And I will spend a few minutes on each of the ways. Some will probably resonate more, some a little less, and that's all right. But just, I'd love for you to be wholehearted in each one. So in no particular order. So tune into any kind of limitation, tightness, heaviness, pain or suffering. Could even be a physical pain. Could be an emotional baggage. The first one, and the one that actually comes most easily to me, is the direct experience of change. So notice how there is a rising and passing. So in my case, in this moment, I can feel throughout my back and spinal column, I can feel tingling, change, arising and passing. In my lower arms, I can feel arising and passing. In my feet, I can feel arising and passing. In my brain, I can feel arising and passing. And that's just at a physical level. Same thing applies to sounds, thoughts, feelings. So instead of noticing the pleasant and unpleasant characteristics, focus on arising and passing. Not as a concept. Oh, one day it'll change. No, that's a thought. As an experience. Actually feel it. Any kind of suffering will confine us. Any kind of perception of impermanence will refine us. and liberate us. Practicing like this will give you a definite sense of something is getting purified. And one of the reasons this works is when we perceive impermanence directly, arising and passing directly, then the underlying tendency towards holding on and pushing away and being ignorant, all three are dealt with in one go. So when you see passing, the tendency to hold on gets weakened. When you see arising, the tendency to push away gets weakened. And the fact that you're seeing both clearly, the ignorance gets weakened. So all the three poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion, all three instantly get weakened with the direct experience of change. And that is why it is a direct path to the ending of suffering. We'll try another approach. Tune into any kind of constraint, heaviness, tightness, dissatisfaction at any level of your being. If you can't, somebody was saying the other day, I can't tune into any suffering. Well, then imagine it. I don't think it should take too much to imagine it. Imagine places in your life where you suffer. And you're right there. So the next approach is to ask yourself, very directly you ask yourself, who's suffering? It's obviously me, I am. Oh, who am I? Who's suffering? I am. Oh, who am I? You could even change the question up a bit. Where am I? Am I in my heart, in my face, in my brain, in my belly, in my solar plexus? Where am I? Am I in this whole room? Whatever answer you give, don't stop there. Again, where am I? If I am in my heart, then obviously something is knowing that I'm in the heart. So where is that? Is that behind the heart? Is that around the heart? And if I'm there, then something is knowing that I'm there. So then where am I? Very quickly, you can't find any center. This is also known as life without a center. So the scriptures say that there is suffering, but there is no sufferer. There is the path, but no one who walks it. There is nirvana, but no one who enters it. So this can be called self-inquiry. Who am I? Where am I? What am I? What is this? Let's go to the next approach. The next approach is a deep sense of surrender. मन चाही हो तो अच्छा, ना हो तो और भी अच्छा. So the simplest phrase for surrender is, let thy will be done, not mine. Let thy will be done, not mine. Many times in my life, not getting what I wanted turned out to be a blessing. Life is not here to break me, it is here to make me. How will my mirror be polished if I complain with every rub? So surrendering, trusting the process. Someone's asking, I get surrender conceptually, but it does not get to my subconscious. Yeah. Another way of saying it, maybe this is the way that Byron Katie kind of explains it, is she says, God is reality. So I don't argue with reality. See that approach helps. Instead of thinking God is some supernatural force or some creator of the universe, you look at God as reality. What is reality? What's happening now is reality. And what does it mean to not argue with reality? In that moment when you're not arguing with reality, your will matches God's will. What is God's will? Reality. What happens when your will matches God's will? Exquisite peace. So she says, I'm not a lover of reality because I'm spiritual. I'm a lover of reality because it hurts when I argue with reality. So that could be another way of looking at surrender. Surrender is surrendering to reality, trusting reality. See if that helps. Those of you who just joined, we are exploring different ways to alleviate suffering. So I'm sharing some ways that I find effective. The next approach, again, go ahead and tune into anything that creates dissatisfaction, tightness, limitation, heaviness, stickiness, pain, confusion. Next approach is compassion, having compassion for self. Instead of getting upset with oneself, berating oneself, it's all my fault. What's the point learning all these things? I can't even deal with this. Basically, I'm broken, I'm limited. And as it is, it's like a child is crying. And then you shout at the child. Something like that is what we do. So when you're already suffering and then you add to it your self-blame, self-doubt, self-criticism, that certainly doesn't help. So instead, we put the balm of compassion. In fact, there's a whole therapy, compassion-focused therapy. I interviewed a man recently for a podcast. He had severe mental disorder from childhood, very severe. Um, Even attempted suicide. Um, and so I asked him, and in fact, he became a bit of a poster child for mental health because he openly talked about it, and he started a campaign to find the man who saved his life. And they actually were able to find the man who saved his life. So he became this is before mental health became a big topic during COVID. So I was interviewing him and I asked him, of all the things you've done, what's helped? The thing that's most helped me, he said, is compassion focused therapy, which essentially means self-compassion, looking at every aspect of his life with compassion. He was born like this. He has a neurological condition which makes him very susceptible to mental suffering. Self-compassion. Self-compassion. Love yourself most when you deserve it the least, because that is when you need it the most. What does it feel like to have self-compassion? Another approach, which is similar and yet distinct, is Bodhisattva, wherein you experience what you're experiencing on behalf of all sentient beings. I kind of discovered this spontaneously when I was walking for 3 or 4 days in the deep forest and I cut my foot. It was quite painful. And we had to keep walking. You couldn't really stop. You couldn't really rest. You had to just keep going. So it was this situation I couldn't get away from. I was in pain, but I couldn't get away from it. There was no way out. So in that moment, this thought came to me that chances are I'm not the only one in the world with pain in my foot. Chances are there are countless other beings with pain in their foot. So how about I take on all their pain? How about I take on all their pain so they don't have pain anymore? Since I have this pain anyway, let me take it on behalf of all beings. The pain didn't go, There's suffering inevitable. And don't underestimate how much heavier things are with suffering. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So without the suffering, which is the mental baggage of, oh my goodness, what if it gets infected? Oh my goodness, how long will this last? Oh my goodness, my fault of buying the wrong footwear. Self-blame. It just became, yeah, I'm feeling this on behalf of all beings. He kept walking for the next 2 days. Also, when I heard about this monk who began crying at his death, saying, my practice has failed. And his student said, what do you mean your practice has failed? You're a great teacher. He said, no, I always pray to go to hell. And I'm going to heaven. What do you mean you're praying to? Why would you pray to go to hell? Because all the saints go to heaven. That's not where they're needed. My practice has failed. And his disciples couldn't believe it. Their master wanted to go to hell. He said, all the saints go to heaven. Completely unnecessary. They need to go to hell. That's where they're needed the most. My only prayer has been, send me to the place I'm needed most. So that is a very powerful example of bodhicitta. So when I read that, something in me really shifted. Wherever I go in this universe, may I be a channel of blessings, whether it's hell or heaven or in between. This is bodhicitta. Every experience is an opportunity to awaken bodhicitta, which is a combination of wisdom and compassion. Why wisdom? Because actually there's no one to save. Why compassion? Because it does appear like there is. And each one of us feels like a separate being, even though deep down we may know we're just made of elements, made of stardust. So practically speaking, anything you're experiencing now, and you decide to experience it on behalf of all beings, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. Even a pleasant experience, like you're feeling very comfortable right now. So, I share this experience with all beings. I share this comfort with all beings. And I experience this discomfort on behalf of all beings. Even a slight discomfort. Maybe you have a slight itch somewhere. That itch can become a vehicle for bodhicitta. So bodhicitta is a very powerful vehicle for alleviating suffering, for converting all the suffering into pure wisdom, pure light. Next practice. It's quite simple. What you resist will persist. What you welcome is not a problem. So it's the act of welcoming. Bring it on. Bring it on. Bring it on. welcoming, welcoming whatever is happening. Bring it on. Bring it on. So it's total non-resistance. The power of this practice is sometimes any other practice we do, in a subtle way, we are trying to get rid of things. So here we're not trying to get rid of anything. Bring it on. Come. And related to this is the idea of non-resistance. And infinite patience. Infinite patience is stay forever, stay till the end of time. A very deep shift happens whenever we have infinite patience. We say, okay, stay till the end of time, stay forever. It's the same as complete non-resistance. And it's not the ordinary mind, it's in a way, it's the infinite mind. A good example of this is a story of these two rishis who were meditating. And after 30 years of practice, tapasya, Lord Brahma appears to the first one and says, what do you want, son? He says, I want liberation from cycle of birth and death. And Brahma says, yes, you shall have it. In as many lifetimes as there are leaves in the tree under which you're sitting. And he looks up and he says, this is a huge tree with many, many leaves. And he's instantly disappointed. I spent 30 years practicing. And I'm being told I have to wait another life, as many lifetimes as there are leaves on this tree. So he's instantly disgusted, disappointed, and he walks away from them. He gives up the practice. Second one, same thing happens. Lord Brahma appears and says, what do you want, son? And he says, I want liberation from the cycle of birth and death. He says, yes, you shall have it. It'll take as many lifetimes as there are leaves on the tree under which you're sitting. And he looks up, the similar kind of tree with many, many, many leaves. And he's instantly overjoyed. He said, oh, you mean it's finite? You mean it's finite? You mean it's going to get over soon? You mean it's going to get over soon? And he starts dancing with joy. It's going to get over soon. It's finite. It's finite. It's going to get over soon. And he's so blissed out. It's finite. It's almost done. It's almost done. He sits there, instantly liberated. This was the final test. If you want to get the infinite, can you have infinite patience? If you want to get the infinite and you're going to be impatient, it's not compatible. So the last test was, can you wait infinitely for this? And he could. He was instantly liberated. So the mind of infinite patience is the same as the mind of instant liberation. And this is the secret of the Bodhisattva vow. The Bodhisattva says, I shall wait till the end of time. I shall postpone my liberation till the end of time, until all sentient beings are enlightened. Every single sentient being is enlightened. Until then, I shall postpone my liberation. This is the vow of a Bodhisattva. I shall drain the samsara of all sentient beings. At one level, it's very scary that, oh my God, I'm going to wait for so long. But the funny thing is, if you actually say that, instant liberation, that mind is equal to instant. That is the Buddha's mind, instantly. So it's very fascinating, the paradox. They say you have the Buddha's wisdom in the palm of your hand. If you think like this, you have the Buddha's wisdom. All the Buddha's teaching in the palm of your hand. If you want to practice the Buddha's teaching, don't practice many things. Practice just one thing. What is that? Mahakaruna, great compassion. You have all the Buddha's teaching in the palm of your hand. Next approach. To see everything as God in clever disguise. G-O-D, grand overall design. It's all God in clever disguise. I've shared the story in some places where this lady contacted me. She witnessed a murder. She'd seen someone being killed in front of her. It had created trauma for her. She wasn't able to sleep well. And I knew she believed in Mahatma Babaji. So I asked her, is Babaji somewhere or everywhere? No, he's everywhere. Is Babaji in someone or everyone? No, he's in everyone. Is Babaji in some things or everything? No, he's in everything. Babaji sometime or every time? No, he's every time. Oh, so by definition, the person who was killing was Babaji. The person who was killed was Babaji. The knife was Babaji. That moment was Babaji. The one witnessing this is also Babaji. What is not Babaji here? Babaji is just her favorite idea of God. You could use any concept of God that you like. But that's all it took. And literally that trauma just disappeared, never to come back. It was just finished in a matter of minutes. She was freed from what for many of us could be a lifelong trauma of experiencing something like that. So to see everything as God in clever disguise. This is another version of surrender. That thy will be done. When Bhakti Vedanta went to the US, he was about to land on US soil. He had been a scholar in Vrindavan his whole life. He was already in his 60s. And then he got this inspiration that he has to, if he can teach the Westerners to chant Hare Krishna, then the Indians will also chant. Because the Indians have become hypnotized by the West. So he said, let me go and make the Westerners chant Hare Krishna, then these Indians will also start chanting. So he's about to land, he collects money somehow, and he gets onto his ship. His ship is about to land on the port. And suddenly a great doubt comes over him. So, oh my God, what is this strange land? I don't know anybody here. All I have is my harmonium. And then he says, oh, Krishna, looks like you want me to dance. Looks like you want me to sing. Looks like you want to play with me. All right. I will dance. I will sing. You can play with me. You can spin me around any way you like. I'll be your doll. Spin me around any way you like. And he completely surrendered himself. Wherever he went, he would chant Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. And people would gather. This is such a different, if you think about it, it's a very alien concept. It's so different from the kind of things Westerners are taught. But still, there was a kind of ecstasy there. People would come, they would sing, they would chant, they would dance. Next thing they know, they're studying the Gita. Next thing they know, they're wearing the robe, the clothes of Hare Krishna. And in a matter of a few years, this spread all over the world. And during his lifetime, some 30, 40 temples were built. Oh, looks like you want me to dance. Looks like you want me to sing. So that's an example of God and clever disguise. It's all God and clever disguise. Surrender. And related to this is the next one, which is a teaching of Kashmiri Shaivism, that every experience is a permutation of bliss. Every experience is a permutation of bliss. Anger is a permutation of bliss. Fear is a permutation of bliss. It's all a permutation of bliss. What happens when you see things as a permutation of bliss? Your current experience right now, it may seem like a very ordinary experience to you. What if you see it as a permutation of bliss? It's yet another way, because bliss is infinite, right? This is yet another way to be blissful. What happens if you see your present condition as a permutation of bliss? Another powerful approach, which we've learned before, is the 5 steps to emotional integration. So you start with, I am. For example, I am sad. So I let you select the word that appeals to you. I am sad, or I am anxious, or I am burdened, or you name it. Just name an emotional word. Frustrated, irritated. It could even be a positive, so-called positive emotion. I'm joyful. The first time you do it, you should typically do it with a more difficult one. Once you've learned it, you can apply it to anything. So for example, I am sad. Second one is, I feel sad. Third one is, I'm aware of feeling sad. Fourth one is, sadness is welcome. And finally, awareness and sadness are not separate. Another very simple but powerful approach is, it's like one of the questions of the work, Byron Katie. Who am I without this story? Who am I without this story? It's not reality that's making us suffer. It's our story, our attachment to our story that's making us suffer, actually. Byron Katie met a friend of hers who was in a hospital with cancer. This friend had made her promise years back. Katie, never lie to me. Whatever you do, never lie to me. So on this day, Katie is with her friend. Her friend's in hospital. She's lying in bed. One of her legs is swollen up, filled with cancer. And her friend is complaining about how difficult it is, how painful it is, and this and that. And Katie is quiet. So her friend says to Katie, say something. So Katie says, well, I don't see a problem. You don't see a problem? And she lifts the blanket covering her feet. One foot is swollen out of proportion. Other foot looks normal. So you don't see a problem? And Katie says, now I see the problem. You want your left foot to look like your right foot. And her friend gets it. And she starts laughing. She says, yes, that's the problem. I want my left foot to look like my right foot. It's not the reality that's painful. It's the story that's painful. It's the could be, should be, would be that's painful. So who are you without your story? At any moment of your life, what happens to suffering without your stories? You don't even have to replace it with another story. You just simply ask yourself, who am I, even for a microsecond, without the story? The next few approaches I will not describe because we know them. I'm just going to mention them. One is Jinshin Jitsu. In Jinshin, the simplest form is holding your fingers. And then there are other holds in the body. You can just literally touching your body in different places, touching your side of your knee, touching your forehead, touching your chest. And there are various points throughout the body. Just literally just touching those points and staying there alleviates suffering. There's something physiological that happens. Similarly with tapping, EFT, just don't even have to follow all the steps of tapping. Just literally just tap. Just keep tapping, 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 and you'll find something shifts. Another one is havening, which we've learned recently. Rubbing your palms, rubbing your shoulders, lightly rubbing your face. Repeating that alleviates suffering. TAT, Tapas acupressure technique. You gently hold a few points on the forehead and the back of the head. And like this, there are many somatic approaches which can also help. This includes certain kinds of breath work can help. Mahasati practice, simple hand movements, or any kind of movements actually, awareness of body movements. Because I've done this for so many years, this comes very easily to me. When it gets too intense, I just come to body movements. This cuts through everything. Another one that helps is invoking some kind of higher power. So Matara, Amitabha Buddha, Sai Baba, Saint Germain, Mahatma Babaji, Guru Nanak, whoever you have an affinity to, you invoke them. You can chant their name. You can just ask them for help. Please be with me. This is beyond my capacity right now. Please be with me. Not feeling strong right now. Please support me. Please guide me. And these are just examples. You may have your own favorite names that represent for you a higher power, higher intelligence, and you invite them to support you. So invoking a higher power. What I love about Amitabha Buddha is that he's particularly made a vow to welcome all beings into his land. Land is not, it may or may not be a physical place, but his land is right now. There's a pure land available right now. And as you invoke him, in a way, you are risen above the mud and you're born from a lotus flower. So right here, there's mud. And right here, there's a lotus. No mud, no lotus. So in the mud of your experience, a lotus will arise. So pure mind, pure land. And Amitabha Buddha is inviting us to embrace our foolishness. The beautiful word in Japanese, bombu. After learning everything, you're still a bombu. You can teach the entire Tripitaka, you can teach all the scriptures of the world. You can be the most well-known scholar in the world. You're still a bombu. The Buddha once sent, there was a monk who was renowned to be an expert in the Buddha's teaching. He had memorized all the Buddha's teaching. Such a smart person. But the Buddha knew that he's only full of words. Bombu, B-O-M-B-U, bombu. So he sent him, he said, I want you to go and study with another monk. He says, sure. So he sends him. This monk that he sends him to, 8-year-old boy. But this 8-year-old boy is an arahant. He's fully liberated. He sends them to an 8-year-old boy. You can imagine how this person said, what 8-year-old boy is going to teach me? The little child is going to teach me. I know everything. That is to humble him. And then the 8-year-old boy shows him and does things that even he can't do. And he's okay, okay. He sits down and starts learning. And so embrace our foolishness. Embrace your foolishness. Embrace the full extent of your foolishness. In the moment you're embracing your foolishness, you're awakening your Amitabha Buddha, your inner Amitabha. So the goal of Pure Land Buddhism is not nirvana. The goal of Pure Land Buddhism is, they call it faith, vows, and practice. Faith in Amitabha Buddha's grace, and vows that you make a vow to be born in Amitabha's heart, Amitabha's mind, Amitabha's land. And practice is you remember Amitabha. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. So it's a combination of surrender and trusting and bodhicitta, all of that combined. And then there are simple phrases like, this is good medicine. This is good medicine. Bring it on. This is the most perfect moment of my life. What if this is the most perfect moment of my life? Fully feeling is healing. तेरा तुझको अर्पण. For me, Douglas Harding's headless way is very accessible. So experiencing this moment in a headless way, because you can't see your head, you can only imagine your head. And any experience seen from a headless perspective has a very different taste. Like, for example, if you were to try this, maybe try this, just take any hand and make a tight fist. Tight, 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 tight. It's going to become a little uncomfortable. Tight. Okay, so there is this tightness. We're going to call this suffering. There's this tightness. It's not fun. It's not pleasant. It's tight. It's painful. But now shift from the tightness to the place where it's being seen from. Ah, this side, it's peaceful. This side, it's tight. This side, it's peaceful. Which side am I focusing on? The place that you're seeing from, there's no pain there, but that fist is tight and it's painful. So you have a choice. Are you going to focus on the fist? Or are you going to focus here where it's completely peaceful, completely at ease? Relax your fist. Instant liberation. So you shift from the tightness to the place it's being observed from. And that's an example of the headless way. Right. So these are a few of the ways that I have found to help alleviate suffering. Like I like to say that wisdom is viewing points, many viewing points. Knowledge is a point of view. Wisdom is a viewing point. So anything you want to learn deeply, learn to see it from many, many, many different perspectives. So I'm sure you have some of your favorite ones, some of the ones that you have discovered, some of the ones that I've shared. But I'd love for you to have many, many, many ways. Because each way has its own secret, its own beauty, its own power. So may you become adept at knowing suffering and the ending of suffering. The Buddha once said that all he taught in his whole life was suffering and the ending of suffering. There's nothing else I've taught of any value. This is all I've taught. I just speak of suffering and the ending of suffering. And if you're honest, then you may not phrase it like that, but if you're honest, then that is probably your pursuit as well. You also, in your own way, want to go beyond suffering. And we all have our own ideas of what will help. But we need to test them because not all of those ideas are actually accurate. Some of them are taking you on a long journey to nowhere. So which is why wisdom is so powerful. can save you a lot of time, save you a lot of wasted effort. So if you'd like to share in the comments in today's practice, which are the one that you found most impactful, powerful, helpful, it would be nice. Finding the sufferer. Who is suffering? This is good medicine, I need you to remember. So your question is wondering how long does it take for these practices of wisdom to surface or rescue when people are right in the middle of suffering? This has to do with your earnestness. See, suffering does not mean you've been hit by a truck or someone has betrayed you. If you're honest, even right now, there is some amount of suffering in this precise moment. There's something there. So are you going to apply what you've learned right now, or are you going to wait for some huge thing to happen? If you're going to wait for huge events to happen, it'll take you a very, very long time. But as you apply it in every moment, whatever you've learned, either from me or on your own, you keep applying it moment by moment. I mean, one of the ways I define wisdom is not tolerating suffering. We tolerate suffering way too much. Don't tolerate it. Apply what you've learned and alleviate. So the answer to me is not about how many years it takes. It's how earnest you are. If you're earnest, it's not going to be very long. In fact, the Buddha guarantees cannot be more than 7 years. Maximum 7 years. That's for the lazy ones. If you really are earnest, the Buddha has said there is nobody in the samsara. If you're really earnest and you practice moment by moment, maximum 7 years. Or 6 or 5 or 3, 2, 1. Or 7 months. Or 6 or 5 or 3, 2, 1. Or 7 weeks. Or 6 or 5 or 3, 2, 1. Or 1 week. I don't think you can call it a week. You have to call it a strong. Infinite patience is the fastest way. Let thy will be done, not mine. Invoking Mahatma about it. Who am I without my story? Bodhisattva. Who is having this experience? Bodhisattva. Self-compassion. Bodhi. Welcome it all and rise above it. Push myself beyond the limits. I love the way everyone and everything will bow at you. Thy will be done. Mahakaruna. Somatic therapies. Non-doership. Bodhisattva. Brahma Viharas. Such a powerful session. Thank you. Direct experience works best to me to bring about change, the most powerful one. Very nice. So keep adding. What a good list to have. Keep adding to it in your own way. Be a researcher, be an experimenter. And I can't think of any education that is more valuable than this, actually. This is the most valuable education. It seems a little negative in a way that, oh, we are focusing on suffering and coming out of suffering. But we should never forget that this is what liberates you. This is what allows your energies to flow. This is what allows your mind to now get creative. This is what allows your spirit to blossom. This is what allows you to be really present with everyone and everything in your life. So even though it's framed somewhat negatively, alleviating suffering and things, it's actually completely positive. It allows you to be positive. Look, in most of these things, if you notice carefully, there were a few in which we invoked a higher power and things, but in most cases, it was a deconstruction, not a reconstruction. In most cases, like for example, direct experience of change, you're allowing things to drop. The headless way, self-inquiry. It's a deconstruction. So you're coming back to something very original. Neti, neti, neti. Not this, not this, not this. Put down the burden. Once you've hit the neti, 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 you've taken that to the most subtle, then automatically iti, iti, iti. Also this, also this, also this. So the fun way of saying this is fill what's empty, empty what's full. Scratch where it itches. Good. Let's make a Mayur. We say together. Mayur, man. Lots of love to everybody. Would you like to unmute and say bye?
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nitya.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nitya. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Perfect.
Thank you.